is Anders, and today I'm joined by my good friend James. And in this video I would like to talk about different guitar tunings for Irish and Celtic music. Now, when I first got into Irish music, I noticed that many of the guitar players used a tuning called DADGAD, D-A-D-G-A-D, and I wasn't familiar with this tuning at the time, but I was really fascinated by it, and the players seem to achieve a very drony and open sound that, to my ears, really fitted the Irish and Celtic music. But still, many people also play standard tuning for Irish music, and it seems to me that most players seem to prefer one or the other. So in this video I was hoping that we could shed some light on the different potential benefits and drawbacks with these two most common tunings. There are also other tunings like drop D, open G, but standard and DADGAD seems to be the most common ones on the scene today. So if you are new to Irish music yourself, maybe this video can help you choose which tuning is right for you. So before we go into the nitty-gritty, maybe you could introduce yourself, James, and tell the guys about your background as a guitar player.
So I grew up on the northwest of England in the Lake District. People in Norway always ask me if I'm from Scotland or Ireland. No, I'm from England. And I studied on the northeast of England in Newcastle, the folk and traditional music course. And there the guitar tutors were mostly playing in standard tuning. So I naturally fell into playing in that tuning system. And the more I travelled the UK, in England and Scotland, around the festivals, I started hearing different guitar styles. Obviously standard and DADGAD were two of the most common, but also drop D and other open tunings as well.
Sure.
I love them all, and I think that some sound great for certain things, and obviously a lot of it comes down to personal preference as well, and what people like to hear themselves, you know.
But you'd also agree that DADGAD and standard seems to be the most common tunings on the scene.
Yeah, and also
days?
drop D is increasingly common now as well. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Maybe we could start off with talking a bit about the different keys that these various tunings lend themselves to. So maybe you could touch your guitar and show us some keys in standard tuning.
Yeah, of course.
So, as you might know, if you know a thing or two about Irish music, is that the most common keys that the tunes are played in are keys like D, G, E minor, B minor, keys in sort of that modal landscape. So, yeah, how does that work on the standard tuned guitar?
Yeah, of course. So I'll maybe show you a few chords in G first. Really nice open sounds. D as well. Bit jazzy, but you know.
And am I right in thinking that it's a bit of a challenge having the E as a bass string when you're in
Yeah,
the key
of
of
course.
D?
I mean, this is it's really interesting. You pick up on that, and you find a lot of standard tuning players will double the bass note with these kind of shapes. These are really common shapes to use, basically because your lowest note is E, which is the second degree in the D major scale.
When you say double the bass note, you mean not playing the E string at all, or?
No, not playing the E string, but just playing a D on the A string and an open D to get the power. So instead of this, it's
to make up for the power that you lose by not having the lower string.
Yeah, of course.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the key of A? How does that work?
It is really nice as well.
And then you obviously have the roots and the fifth on the open bass strings.
Yeah, of course, you got plenty of open strings available to you. Yeah.
Cool. Now, how would those keys sound on the DADGAD tune guitar?
Yeah, of course. So we can look at that. So
now the benefit of DADGAD and other open tuning is obviously that you have more open strings available to you with using fewer fingers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if I just show you the 6 strings, this is a sus4 chord essentially. You've got 1, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, and then you got the 4th there. So really you only have to alter 1 string to get chord 1, which is really nice. And from here we can just work with the bass string and this string.
And now you're in the key of D, right?
I'm in the key of D here. It's really common to see people kind of putting the 5th in the bass as well.
And now, like, you have a lot of power in the bass from like the double bass, and you also have the drony feeling of the ringing strings on the bottom.
Yeah, these are always ringing, the same 3 notes. And
that's kind of the sound of the DADGAD guitar in my mind.
It's
like.
the sound of the DADGAD guitar, very powerful as well. Obviously, D is the most powerful key in some ways. I mean, you've got A minor and A mix, which are really nice keys as well.
Okay, what about the key of A in
Yeah,
DADGAD?
of course. So I think I'm more comfortable with A mix, if that's okay. I don't use this system too much. Really nice, and you've always got the kind of D on the top, so it's like this sus4 kind of feel, which is really nice with the mixed tunes as well.
But it's certainly a specific sound, right?
Yeah, of course, and it's kind of, I personally find it really difficult to move away from this kind of drone sound once you get into that, if that kind of makes sense.
Of course.
And I know it can be done because I've heard some very good DADGAD players.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I think perhaps maybe people think that DADGAD isn't very versatile, but it really is, and I've heard people do it really well. It's just about kind of getting into those other keys and trying to get away from this sound of very open and ringing strings.
But it is a fact that I'd say most of the DADGAD players that I know, they rely a lot on the capo.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So maybe we could talk a little bit about the use of capo.
Yeah, of course. So much more common in Irish traditional music with the DADGAD players. I've experimented with capos in all kinds of tunings and even standard as well. I think it's really important just to talk about the different kinds of capos very quickly. Sure. You've got one here which is a spring-loaded capo. This one's a Kaiser capo, and you've also got a shub capo. I've also used other capos like a quick draw slide capo.
Because many people will obviously like move the capo in the middle of the set.
Yeah, of course. Some people can move it within a beat. I mean, if you look at players like Tim Eady, it's incredible. It's really cool. I've tried lots of different capos, but I find that these latch style capos are much better than the spring loaded capos.
But not as quick to move, is my
No,
guess.
obviously these are more of kind of like a permanent fixture, whereas this you can move quite easily. I've seen people move these as well. So if we just stick this on here, you can kind of get exactly the same sound using the same chords, which is really interesting. One thing I always try and do is get the capo very close
to the fret.
Quite often I might see people kind of playing like this, and you got all kind of buzzing and things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be beneficial to angle your capo for the intonation as well, but that's about knowing how your guitar's set up. And obviously setup is a massive part of this if you're going to be using a capo often.
Okay.
Because obviously by using a capo you're changing the length of the strings and also the angle from which they come up, so it changes the action and other things like that.
Yeah.
So it's really important just to be aware of that, and that's maybe why it's difficult to switch between tunings on the same guitar sometimes.
Oh yeah, so you'd actually have your guitar set up differently for if you were a DADGAD player?
Yeah, I mean I'm not a DADGAD player, but I would assume so.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, even when I drop my D string, obviously it's longer, the string's going to move more, and I can get buzzing as well, so...
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, it's really nice, because it means...
So now you're in the key of E major?
E major, yeah. Playing DADGAD, but there you go.
I actually find about the DADGAD guitar playing with the capo is that even though you're playing exactly the same, the color of the instrument changes a bit because everything is in a high register.
Yeah, everything lifts, and of course you've like generally if you're playing in the tonic, you always have the lowest note as the kind of the first chord, which is really powerful, really. In this style of music, like it always lands on the one, you know. So that's like a huge advantage, really, of using this tuning system, I would say. Sometimes on the guitar, when I'm playing in tunes like B minor, for instance, and C and D, where you don't really have the notes as low in the bass,
Sure.
they can be like less powerful.
Yeah.
But then also, that can also have its advantages. It depends, you know, on your style and
Because you risk sounding exactly the same in every key, in a way.
Yeah, I think that's
if you just approach every key the same way, except you move the couple.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and it's it's really important that you pick up on that. But then it's really important about the right hand too, to get variation into the sound of your playing. I think it's quite often perhaps overlooked in all tunings, the right hand. In my opinion, I think you can have a really, really good right hand, and maybe your left hand isn't so great, but you can still sound really, really good with a really good right hand. So that definitely shouldn't be overlooked.
You could almost argue that as a backer in Irish music, you're more of a rhythmic instrument than a melodic instrument in some way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's almost lying somewhere in between. I always see myself as like the bass player and the drum player and the guitarist, like in
it's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility. I find I mean, this is my personal style of playing. When I'm in standard, I can separate those parts much easier. I don't know whether it's because of the layout or whether that's the style I'm used to. In standard, I'll separate into bass and higher notes. In DADGAD, I seem to find myself falling into this very kind of smooth sounding style, which is obviously really common as well. It's really nice, and yeah, it's just two very different styles, like I say.
Yeah. So my next point is actually styles.
Yeah.
So maybe you could expand a bit on that. Because as you said, the DADGAD guitar kind of lends itself to this open style with all the ringing high strings and the powerful bass. And as you also touched on, it can be tricky to get away from that style sometimes.
Yeah, I think so as well. But I particularly like the open strings for when I'm playing solo pieces, for instance.
Yeah.
It means you can have much more resonance and you get a lot of overtones.
But could you maybe show us some playing on the standard tune guitar that you think would be difficult to achieve on the DADGAD guitar?
I can have a go. Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's necessarily about difficulty. I think there's lots of things you can do between both. But I think one of the big advantages of the standard tuning style is the versatility between keys.
Yeah, because
a huge thing.
I would think that having all those Ds becomes a bit of a problem when you move away too far away from the key of D.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's a really good point. Whereas with the tuning system I use, I can go straight from G to B minor to D to E major. As we talked about with the DADGAD, I mean, the E major is probably one of the nicest keys on the guitar, I think, in standard tuning, because you've got the top two strings and the bottom and the fourth.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of freedom with what you can do. And
too bad E major is almost never used for traditional tunes.
Although it's interesting, like it is much more used on the contemporary scene now. I don't know whether that is because of the guitar, like maybe people are used to that bright sounding backing, or whether it's to do with the fiddle, or whether it's just trying to sound a bit brighter than what we used to what we used to hearing. So I think that's really interesting as well. But I enjoy the versatility, and also I often play with musicians with slightly different influences. Maybe I'm playing a little bit of old time or bluegrass backing, or even different genres. There you go. And it's really useful to be able to play in standard. I sometimes learn songs from country, folk, pop artists, and the students that I teach want to learn all the pop songs, which
it's obviously a more
tuning,
versatile tuning outside Irish trad.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear that you back tunes in a kind of jazzy way, which I think can be a really neat approach to certain types of tunes.
Yeah.
You think you could give us an example of that?
Put me on the spot, but I'll have a go.
Well, that's what you're here for.
That was terrible, but there you go.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
But my guess is that would be tricky to do on the DADGAD tune guitar.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it done, so I guess it would depend on finding that right kind of style. It depends how far you want to move away from the open sound, of course, and maybe that's why you chose DADGAD in the first place.
Yeah, maybe at some point it doesn't make sense to play a guitar tune a certain way if it's easier to do it on another tuning.
Yeah,
maybe?
of course, yeah.
Finally, maybe we could touch upon different musical settings, and if you would choose one tuning over the other depending on what kind of ensemble you're in or situation.
Yeah, of course, yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that when I play solo guitar, which isn't too often, but I've been doing it more recently, I would opt for the more open tunings, but that's not to say you can't do it in standard tuning. You get all these nice runs and things in certain keys. So it's about finding the right keys, but obviously in the I'll get the other guitar out, in DADGAD you do have these top strings too much. I don't know
Which makes it easier to play like lines and stuff, maybe. Yeah.
You can always have these ringing over the top, which is really nice. And also, I mean, I find especially when backing melodies, you can maybe add a few more runs. You can seem to have much more freedom over movement within the chords. That's something really in standard tuning is very difficult when you're using 3 fingers already to cover a chord.
Yeah.
We've only got 4 fingers and a thumb, you know. There's only a certain amount you can do. So yeah, I would say that's maybe one of the things we didn't touch on is the movement within the chords.
Yeah.
The kind of more like bouzouki kind of style Irish traditional music, which is really interesting as well. But like I say, it can be done on standard as well.
Yeah, but maybe if you're after that specific style, maybe it makes more sense to play it on the open tuning.
Yeah, I'd agree, yeah.
All right, do you have any final advice for people just starting out playing Irish music on the guitar?
Yeah, of course. So,
especially when it comes to tunings.
Yeah, like I say, it's a totally personal preference. But if you don't play the guitar already and you really want to get into Irish music, there's a few things you can do. I mean, you can listen to the greats.
Which is the most important thing, probably.
Yeah, of course. And also, if you've got a guitar, just tune it in DADGAD. And there's lots of tutorials and other things out there where you can use all these one-finger tricks, and that's just 2 fingers with 1 strum, and already it's sounding quite nice. And I think anyone can do this.
Sure. So it's a quite like a rewarding way to start out.
Really satisfying if you can do this after 10 minutes. So you know, it's great. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this little interview. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Well, don't search James Taylor in Google. It's number 1. You won't find anything of me, unfortunately.
Well, there you go.
But you can get me through Ornda's Facebook page or his Instagram. And yeah, just if you have any questions or maybe you want a lesson or anything, just get in touch. Yeah.
Great stuff. Also, if you have any general questions for me or James, you can also drop them in the comment section below. Looking forward to hear from you. And as always, like and subscribe and share and tell your friends. And I'll see you in the next video.